Welcome back to MVM. Today we have a Kickstarter preview. This one is for Champions of Nexum. This is from Board Legends, and it is a tabletop MOBA for sure. If you've ever played anything like League of Legends or games like that on the PC, this is probably one of the more faithful renditions of that on the table we've seen.
Absolutely. So as we say with every Kickstarter preview that we do, this is a prototype version. However, it's pretty close to being done. All the miniatures look fantastic.
Yeah, the miniatures are sweet. They have a really nice sort of caricature look to them.
So you're going to be having your own heroes, which are represented by miniatures. You have your towers or your stations that players have to go through and destroy, which are also miniatures. You have all the different mobs or monsters in the game, which are also miniatures. And you have garrisons down here, which are kind of your last line of defense before the other players break through and try to destroy your castle. Now, as with any MOBA game, it looks like a MOBA game. You have a castle on one side and a castle on another side, and the objective is to get your heroes from one side over to the other side, destroying towers as you go, and destroy their castle.
Yeah, it's not as simple as just doing that either. There's a lot of things you need to do along the way. There's going to be dueling, there's going to be searching, exploring, all sorts of really cool things to sort of power your guys up to sort of prepare for that final battle.
All right, so as the game starts, each player is going to roll one of these dice, and whoever has the highest die number is going to make a decision. And this is when the first decision happens in the game. They're going to either decide if they want to be the first player throughout the entire game, or if they want to draft their 3 heroes first. Now, this can be played at 2 players. It can also be played at 6 players, or any combination thereof. Each of the players at 6 is going to have 1 individual hero. If Dave and I are playing together, each of us is going to try to play with either 2 or 3 heroes.
Right.
We suggest 3 because you have more variety in the things that you're going to do. When you take these heroes, there's 10 that we have seen so far, but obviously with the Kickstarter, there's probably going to be more of these. Each of these individual heroes has 2 special abilities, just like any MOBA game, and then they have a line down here that's going to show their attack, or how many dice they're going to roll, how much damage that they are going to inflict upon the other player if they do damage, how many defensive dice they're going to roll, and then how much health they can sustain until they are destroyed and sent back to their own castle.
Yeah, and these characters have a ton of, a wide variety of flavor. You know, you're going to have your classic roles, you know, big tanks that go in, do a lot of damage or take a lot of damage. You're going to have the ones that are more nimble and move more quickly around the board. And some of them are going to have sort of advantages over others, and then you can expand upon that with these treasure cards as well.
All right, speaking of all the cards in the game, the first cards you see here on the actual board itself, these are reward cards that are given for completing very specific quests or for getting certain cards to proc within the game. Each of these cards is going to represent things like armor or weapons or relics that the characters can wear. Each character can hold 3 of these. When you look at these cards, they have 2 different things on them. The bottom part is an ability that you will always have. These are going to increase maybe your health, your attack powers, how much damage you can inflict. And then the middle part is a part that you get to use if you discard the card. These cards, when they're obtained, they're either obtained from one of the face-up or the face-down pile itself.
Yeah, some of the other cards too, we have some exploration cards, and there's going to be 2 different types of places you can explore. First is the jungle. It looks like this. These are going to involve some dice and a little bit of chance, so you're going to be trying to get some of these gems or crystals when you explore the jungle, because you're going to want those crystals to deliver to them via some quests that are going to allow you to progress in the game. And then the other kind is the path exploration, noted by these feet. This is less chance. It's going to be more of a decision-based thing. Do you want this or do you want this? You just make that decision and take those.
Most of the path cards are going to give you energy, which are going to power the abilities on your players themselves. The final type of card here is the spell cards. The spell cards can be obtained at any of the locations where your hero stops their movement. In order to obtain these, you have to spend 4 energy. Now, there's a couple spaces on there that will allow you to spend less energy in order to obtain these. These have all kinds of wide-ranging different abilities. You also have these large tarot-sized cards, which are your quests. Now, this is the main part of the game. Each player at the start of the game is going to reveal 1 per team. You have a blue team and a red team. On these cards, they're going to show you both a main quest and then a side quest at the bottom. The side quest can only be completed once and once only while this card remains face up. The top quest has 2 different things you're trying to do. In this game, you're trying to destroy the other player's towers. In order to do that, you have to obtain very specific colored crystals from very specific colored locations on the board, and then deliver them to different locations. Each time you do that with one of your characters, you're allowed to place that crystal on one of these two locations and then destroy the first one of their towers from the outside in. Now, why do you want to do that? Because in any MOBA game, you're trying to advance to their castle. So you want to try to destroy these locations as you move closer to their castle. All right. Have we explained most of the cards, most of the components?
I think all the components are clear. We need to talk about getting through these garrisons and attacking the castles and all the things that you do along the way.
All right, so let's talk about the gameplay structure itself. Once we have drafted our heroes, we're going to determine turn order. That's the player who didn't draft their heroes first. Turn order is going to happen like this. Now, the game can obviously be played in multiple different ways. There's actually rules for drafting and being able to pick which character you want to use at any given time. However, the base rules say this. If I'm the first player, I'm going to use the character on my furthest left. Once his turn is done, it'll be David's furthest left character, and we'll go in that zigzag pattern until all 6 of our characters have taken activations, and we'll do an end of the round type of thing.
Yeah, so there's some strategy to be had when you're planning your characters out, because some of those different powers that they have, some of them might be a little bit more beneficial if it's the first character you use versus the last character you use.
All right, so what are you doing on your turn? Well, your character, depending on which character you're using, is going to take one of 2 different stances. No matter what, you have basic actions that you can always perform for your character. There's 4 basic actions that you can take. The first one is simply to move, and you can move up to 2 spaces. There's some rules here as well. You cannot move through other players' towers unless they're destroyed. So those locations are blocked off until you destroy their towers. When you move, you're simply going to take your character and then move them 2 spaces. There's some modifications that can happen in there depending upon what round you're in, what the calendar or the rondel says down there in the corner, and any kind of special abilities you may have, either on your character or from cards themselves. When you land in that particular location, you then have 3 other basic actions that you can take on your turn. You can hunt, you can try to get a spell, which is, we already said, it's expending 4 energy from that particular character to draw a spell card, or you can exchange. The only thing that you can exchange in this game are gems from one of your characters to another one of your characters. And that's important because you can deliver them to different locations once you collect them. But I'm going to talk about hunting. If you guys are familiar with MOBA games, hunting is when you go after the mobs or the monsters within the game. These monsters are going to populate at random times within the game. The game's going to start with 2 rats. And if you look at the back of the player aid, it's going to tell you values that you have to roll against these particular things to get bonuses. The rats are very easy. You just need to roll a 2 or higher. But as the game progresses and new monsters are introduced, you're going to have to roll higher and higher. And you can roll higher by introducing more of your own characters in the same space. But these give you a large number of rewards depending upon the mob that you kill.
Right, there's a lot of different things you can do to improve your chances with the hunt. But one thing that Jeremy mentioned was this calendar, and this is a really cool aspect that brings those creatures in throughout the game. Basically, at the beginning of each round, one of the things that's going to happen is you're going to move that around that calendar, and a new mob is going to be introduced on the board in a very specific location for that mob.
Exactly. All right, what you have and any of the other 2 stances that you decide to go in. Now you have the decision to make. Do you want to go into one of 2 stances? You have an attack stance and you have an adventure stance. I'll let you talk about the adventure stance where you can explore.
Yeah, the adventure stance is going to be used quite a bit. This is what you're going to do to explore or to attack the castle.
Right.
That's not going to come for quite a while, and we'll probably talk about that at the end. But the first part is exploring, and depending on the space you're on, there is a number of different types of spaces. As long as you're not on a garrison space, all the other spaces are either path locations or jungle locations. If you explore that location, you're simply going to take one of those cards, look at it, and either make your decision or roll up some dice and hopefully get a reward from those.
Most of the times in the game, too, you can expend energy to reroll dice. You may be wondering, how do I mitigate my dice? Just give up some energy. Yeah. You can reroll those dice to try to hit some of those parameters. We're going to skip over victory because that's how you win the game. We'll talk about that as we talk about the other 2. Now, the other stance that you can decide to go into is the attack stance. The attack stance is used for 2 different things. One, to duel other heroes in those locations. or to attack the other player's garrison, which you'll have to do. You'll have to get rid of one of these garrisons in order to push through and to try to attack the castle. I'm going to talk about dueling first. Dueling is when you have your hero in the same location as another hero, and you want to duel them because you want to be able to destroy some of their towers, and that's one of the things that can happen when you actually duel. Dueling is simple. You're going to look at your player card, and you're going to see how many attack dice that you have. Now, the attack dice can be modified again by any of the different cards you may have attached to them. It can even be modified by where we stand on that calendar or the rondelle on the bottom right corner of the map. You're going to collect those in black dice. These are the attack dice. And then the defender that you're trying to attack is going to use white dice, depending upon his defense value, which is located there. Then each player is going to roll those dice, and they're going to compare symbols. These are hit symbols on the actual dice, and you're going to see whoever has the most. If you're the attacker and you have either the same number as the defender or more, your attack goes through. And you're going to deal damage according to your player's damage value, in addition to any of the dice that you rolled that have damage symbols on them. This is how you're trying to kill the player. Now, you can have multiple characters in the same location against an opponent, or the opponent can have multiple in the same location against the attacker. No matter each of those, whoever has more gets to roll additional dice in that actual combat itself.
Right, that's what we call advantage. So if you have advantage, you're going to roll a die or an additional die for every character you have. The other thing that must be said here is it's not as simple as just rolling your attack die and rolling your defense die. Like we've said, there's a lot of things that can adjust that. You can have cards on your characters. A lot of the special abilities can come into play. There are characters who have ranged attacks, so I might be able to duel with Jeremy even if his character is 2 spaces away from me.
Yep. So what happens when you duel? You're going to remove that health from their character. If that character dies, then you get to destroy some towers. Now, there's 2 ways to destroy towers in this game. One, as we already mentioned, is by completing these quests. Each time you complete one of these 2-part quests, you get to take one of their towers and destroy it. And that's because the track down here is going to move each time you do that. That's going to allow you to attack the castle. The other way this can move is if you kill one of their heroes. If you kill one of their heroes, this is going to be able to be progressed up twice. And again, anytime you move forward on that, you get to destroy castles from the outside in, trying to make a path to the actual castle location itself. You're also going to notice that each of these have numeric values when you reach certain areas. Those are values that you're trying to roll in order to win the game. Now, as David kind of glossed over, during the adventure stance, you can instead try to do a victory. To do a victory, you're going to have to be into this location and then try to destroy the castle. And you're trying to roll higher than the number of the towers that you've defeated.
Exactly. But before you go for the castle, there's one last thing we have to talk about, and that is laying siege to these garrisons.
Yeah.
Because to take location of the garrison, you're going to have to defeat it. And this works just a lot like the duel, but with some different dice. You're going to have any number of your characters there, and again, you're going to have advantage if you have more. As long as you have one or more, you can lay siege to the garrison. You're simply going to roll one of the test dice, and you have to get a 6 or higher. Of course, if you have 2, you're going to be rolling 2 of these, so it improves your chances. You roll a 6 or higher, the garrison is removed from the board, and now you have immediate access to attacking the castle.
Right. And you're going to repeat that round after round. At the end of every single one of the rounds, each of the characters on each of the player's sides is going to gain 1 energy. Again, those energy are used to either reroll dice, or they're used to be able to proc some of the spells that they have on the actual characters themselves. Then you're going to move that calendar 1 space forward. When you move the calendar, that is going to introduce new mobs or monsters into the game. You're simply going to look at the monsters that I introduce and place them in the locations on the board where they're supposed to be placed. Plus, it's going to provide an additional benefit to all the characters during that round. Where we have it right now is that during the attack phase, everyone gets to roll 1 extra die. And those are going to change. They're going to either add health, add hunting values, add movement for the characters. There's a wide range of things that can do.
Yeah, it's really interesting because as you start to play this game, you start to realize that at the beginning of the round, you want to take note of that because it's going to help motivate what you may or may not want to do that round. Because if you're going to get a bonus, it may be the right time to try to duel
Yeah.
or something like that.
So this is Champions of Nexum. This is a very, also has enough depth in the game to feel like you're doing a wide range of things, and there's a lot of strategy to be had as well.
Yeah, they seem to hit all of the buttons you'd expect with a MOBA, and it's all colors on this board are simply amazing.
Yep. If you guys have any questions about the game, make sure you guys go to the Kickstarter to check out all the different components. Subscribe to us, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and everything else that we do, and we will catch you guys next time.
Bye-bye.